In 30 seconds, you will be witness to one of the greatest online events in the history of, well, online events. Descript proudly brings to you a topic that you deeply care about and whose name is the title of this online event. I'm Don. I am not your host. I am an overdub stock voice included for free with Descript. So, now, let's meet someone who actually works here.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jay LaBeouf, and I'm the head of business development here at Descript. I am joined by Aidan Fitzpatrick, founder of Reincubate, and we're going to talk in a second. What we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about how you can actually make the leap in producing content. It's a new year. You've decided you want to make the leap. You want to do a video podcast. You want to start cranking out more marketing videos, some product demos. You want to get your content up on YouTube. And the first thing you're thinking is, oh my goodness, where do I get all of this gear to make a nice looking video image? Which of course you're going to edit in Descript, but we're not going to cover that today. The goal is this very front end. How do you get yourself looking good and sounding good? It all starts from there, having great quality content, and that's what we're going to cover. So we're going to go through some simple, affordable tips. I reached out to Aidan because he knows a ton about this stuff and has reams of gear and has looked at it all. So we're going to go through some live demos and look at it. Thank you to everybody joining us on our YouTube channel. I'd like to kind of encourage everybody to start commenting. So we're going to look at the comments. We're going to take questions in real time. Several of you let us know already where you're joining us from the UK to Arlington, Texas, to Bonn, Germany, Portland, Oregon. I would also encourage everybody to tell us, what gear do you use? I want to know what camera you are currently using for your video. And if none at all, tell us your laptop so we can kind of maybe do that and include that as part of our demos. We're going to take questions as we go, and we'll be keeping an eye on it. Chris is in the behind the scenes virtual booth to help out with our questions. So with that, Aidan, thanks for joining us.
Jay, it's lovely to see you. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to it, and hopefully I can give people a pretty good idea on how to get the best video quality without spending a couple of grand.
So they probably need to spend $1,000 at least.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can get it a bit less than that. Maybe we can do it with things that you already have in terms of your ordinary day-to-day kit. That's where I think I can help in particular.
Awesome. So as longtime viewers of this webinar have probably seen, when I decided I'm going to do a live webinar, I'm going to put this on YouTube for Descript, the first thing I did was research what to do. And I'm like, I have to get a DSLR, I have to get a tripod, I have to get a ring light. Then I had to get a Blackmagic A10 Mini, but I needed a cam link. So at this point, I've already spent like $1,500. And in reality, I have it here because, with all due respect to the manufacturers, I just don't use it. A lot of times I get online, it's pretty impromptu. So I just use as much built in as possible. So maybe you can walk us through, like, kind of motivate. Do you also hear people talk about, you have to use a DSLR, you have to get all this outboard gear to connect it up, and maybe walk us through some of the options?
Yeah, certainly. So I mean, there are a couple of ways to get online with your video. There are built-in webcams, external webcams using smartphones or iOS and using DSLRs. And really, when it comes to image quality, you can't beat the DSLR. You're probably going to be spending, the very lowest end, maybe $600. But really, to sort of start to get good, you probably want a $2,000 camera. You probably want a 28mm lens. That's, maybe $500 on its own. But essentially, a DSLR is going to get you incredible quality. Now, there are a few caveats and challenges around that. I mean, first of all, there are broadly speaking, two types of DSLR or two types of DSLR integrations. And I know Lisa's comment. So some of them, more modern ones natively can be used as webcams. They've kind of got the technology. You're generally reliant on pretty weak and often beta software for integration with those sorts of DSLRs. And then if you have an older DSLR or if you have a cam link like Jay just showed us, you might be in cable hell. And sometimes, when you're taking an output from a cam link, you may have battery or charge issues. You may not be able to charge and pull data from the device at the same time. And you also may have quite a lot of setup to be managing. I mean, as Judy said, DSLRs are pretty fussy. So there are a bunch of people who have these things, but they only use them for particular video set pieces. It's not very easy to have a setup like this and use it day to day. Typically, what you will get though with the DSLR is better handling of light, better handling of exposure, generally pretty good manual adjustment and control of your image, and that shallow depth of field that people love to see in streams.
Awesome. So let's look at the people. We've got a number of people watching live, summarizing what they have, and you can also see this in the comments. We've got so StreamCam. Are you familiar? What's StreamCam?
So StreamCam is a Logitech product.
Okay. Awesome.
It's one of their BRIO line, and then of course the Nikon's.
Awesome. Maddie, the author's using MacBook Air built-in, Sony A7R, the G Master lens. I have no idea what that means, but it's a G Master. It's got to be a good lens. The iPhone with the lav mic, GoPro. Interestingly, that was the first external camera I ever used on my laptop, was getting a GoPro to go in, and it's good I found for a 2-camera setup for me. GoPro 8, iPhone 10, Lenovo IdeaPad, iPhone 12 Pro Max, iMac, iPad Pro, Logitech, awesome, and then Sony Alpha 5100, couple of key lights.
It's got the setup.
Yeah, I'm going over their place. Awesome.
Yeah.
So, Aiden, how do you want to do this? Should we kind of motivate this by showing what some of these things look like in real time?
Yeah, why not? Let's do that. I think we've got a well. I guess first of all, something to think about when picking a camera is where and how it's going to be used, and the medium it's going to be on. If you're streaming on Zoom, for example, or recording on Zoom, there's going to be a huge amount of compression. That is going to transcode down probably to 360p. If you are recording material offline, you could be working with 4K or 8K, but fundamentally, it's not really about the resolution of the camera you're using. It's about its ability to take in light and have a great scene, because you can expect your image is almost certainly going to be compressed, if not at recording time, then in delivery time when you come to distribute it. But what we could do is we could cut to, we've got a video where we're showing off a couple of different kind of bits of webcam and camera output. So here's Jeff showing off silently kind of the output that we're seeing from a range of webcams and from an iPhone 11. You're just seeing, well, the C920 struggles with focus, but there are some kind of color balance issues that we see there. And I can actually maybe go into showing a bit of a live demo with a couple of different cameras on what might work well. Webcams, ordinary webcams are kind of hard to use when doing high impact presentations, mainly because you start to run into these sorts of problems with light. If you're in an office environment or a studio environment, you're going to be very well lit. But a lot of people, if they're recording at home, that they don't necessarily have the key light set up or a lot of natural light in front of them. So I'm in an office, as you can see. I've got a nice key light off to one side of me. I'm spotlit from above, and I've got some ambient light behind me. So I'm kind of in an okay scene light-wise. At the moment, my video feed is coming from an iPhone 11 Pro Max. You'll note my eye contact isn't great because I've got a slightly different setup for the purpose of this webinar. I've got a stack of different cameras rather than my usual setup where I can kind of align things. But if I go, if I go to the built-in camera on this Mac to give you an example of how a built-in is going to come across, this is an iMac 5K. So this is a top-of-the-range iMac device. I mean, there are a bunch of problems with the color balance. It seems quite desaturated. The blacks are very black. There's a bit of an exposure blowout behind me where it can't handle the white wall. There's not too much softness, but it's capturing in 720, which is the best it can do. So it's not an amazing outcome. I can switch now to a Logitech C920, which is generally sort of considered the best ordinary webcam that you're going to see. Takes a little while to initialize, but there we go. So you can see it's a little bit crisper than the built-in. It's still really got a color kind of saturation and flatness problem. It's blowing out the wall behind my head. It's not really kind of picking up fleshy tones, and it's doing a bit of refocusing. It's still a better, crisper image. And I can go now to a BRIO 4K, which is very similar to the Logitech StreamCam. It's basically the best you can buy. This is the Stream Edition. These things have a weird problem with color balance. It takes a little while for them just to kind of calibrate when you turn them on. But as you can see, it's quite a step up, but there's still quite a lot of flatness in this image. It also does this thing where it retouches your face. Now, you may or may not want this to happen. It's doing its best to make me look younger and like I haven't been working really hard building software. Yeah, it messes about with the image. And then if I jump back to the iPhone 11 Pro Max, you can see, I mean, it's a hand light. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the sort of things to watch for when you're weighing these things up, as I said, exposure and hotspots. You saw the wall going slightly strange behind me with some of those cameras. There can also be a challenge, if I jump back to the BRIO for a moment. So these BRIOs can record in 4K, which is kind of nice, but it can put a lot of load on your computer. So webcams used to have hardware encoders and decoders. For the last couple of years, Logitech haven't shipped them, which may mean that if you're recording locally, it's slightly more intensive on your Mac or on your PC than it would be if you're taking a feed that's already in the right format, either from a DSLR or an iPhone or what have you. Let me just go back to Camo.
Yeah, it's visually striking when you jump back. And the C920, kind of crazy because how long has this webcam been around? I mean, I was purchasing these things like at least 4 years ago as like top of the line webcam, and it's the most popular one listed on our YouTube comments so far, aside from the DSLR setup.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really is 90s technology. It's notable that Apple spend more on their camera technology in a given year than Logitech make in their total revenue, even if you add in, the DSLR makers as well. There's very, very little advancement in those sorts of technology. Just hold up my iPad to, whoops, let me flip this camera around. I can hold up my iPad just to show the small rig I've got over the screen, where I've got the 11 Pro Max there, and I've got the StreamCam 4K and the C920.
Awesome. Lisa's getting validation, but of course, now let's talk about one of the reasons that you and I actually met, and Sycamore is kind of introducing this for us. So I had this aha moment. I was like probably on hour 4 of watching YouTube home DSLR key light setups to try to figure out which one I buy and what the heck a 28 mil lens is and all this stuff. And I was like, I have an incredible phone. The photos I take are incredible. The video can shoot 4K, multiple cameras. Can't I use my phone for this? And then after, like, here I have this $1 million idea. And then, of course, what do I stumble across? I stumble across an app called Camo. So do you want to tell us a bit about Camo and maybe explain how you are streaming from your phone and what's going on here?
Yeah, sure. So Camo is a product that we've built that enables you to do just that. We figured these iOS devices have amazing cameras, and Apple is putting a huge amount of money and brains into the development of these things. So we wanted a way to use them on calls. I was really frustrated that with a top-of-the-range Mac and all of the best webcams, when I joined Zoom calls, I would have a worse image quality than someone who would just kind of casually join directly on their iPhone or iPad. So the question was, could we kind of get that same quality for Mac users? And so Camo is a product. It runs on a Mac, it runs on a PC, and essentially it lets you take input from that device's camera. And it's not just dumb, it gives you a studio that you can use to control a lot of options around the camera. And what I can do is, let me share my screen for Camo Studio. So Camo Studio is a bit of software. It's running on my Mac now. And it's giving me a preview of what my iPhone can see. So you're seeing now my little Camo window. If you're using something like Google Meet or some tools like that, you don't always get a preview of yourself. So this is a nice way to be able to see exactly what you're broadcasting to other people as you're talking. I'm able to kind of scroll that in and out and move it around. I can connect a number of different iOS devices. I can choose between the different lenses on the device according to what I'm doing. So, you know, sometimes if you're shooting a yoga class or a fitness class, you're zooming out to see a congregation, or if you need to kind of zoom in on a particular detail, there are lenses that are more or less appropriate to that. There are a range of kind of controls for resolution and so on and so forth. And I can also do stuff, for instance, there's a portrait mode effect here, which is very similar to the portrait mode on an iPhone you may be familiar with. Now, this is our attempt at trying to get the iPhone as close as possible to doing what a DSLR does. You'll see it's giving me that beautiful blurred background effect and that sense of depth behind me. So there are a couple of other things that it lets you do. So, for instance, I can apply a custom watermark, and I can put my own little name and branding on my video feed. I mean, of course, we can do this in StreamYard, and this can be done with other products as well. And I can have, for instance, a CNN style banner, or I can kind of decorate my setup however I need. And then what I've also done that's quite powerful is I've cropped out the viewport. So if you look at it just with the default camera's viewport, you know, I've got this space around me. It's kind of unhelpful. I'm able to kind of crop out some of the surround and just pan down so that you're seeing a nice big shot of me. And usually the camera on the iPhone absolutely nails the image and gets the settings just right. But we do have a set of adjustments that you can see down the side, or we can give it a helping hand. We can take some of the light out of the image. We can boost that up. And indeed, there's like a set of presets. So, you know, we've got some fairly extreme examples of something that you might do with your image feed. But, you know, we can take it down to mono. We can kind of buff up the saturation and so on and so forth. But it's just a very kind of simple to use product that helps you access that feed. I've got an iPhone on a stand above my machine, and we'll talk a little bit more about mounting, I think, later. But it's connected to the Mac with the generic Lightning cable that the iPhone comes with. So you get the phone, you put the Camo app on it from the App Store, you have Camo Studio on your Mac, you just connect the two, and you're away.
Amazing, amazing. So while you still have that screen sharing, So a real world example for those of you that do Zoom calls, webinars, you know how you change, you go to different views, and the next thing you know, like, look at my, I'm at a screen. So I've actually been using the Camo Studio to be very vain and make sure that I'm in the frame without having to like run around my studio and do this, or, the shot changes, but I'm able to kind of recompose it as we go. So a couple things to clarify that's come in from comments. While we've been talking about, you're connected with your iPhone, you said this runs on Windows and this works with non-iPhones as well?
Yeah, so it runs on Windows. The Windows version is freely available at the moment. We're just about to go into beta for Android. And I see Lisa's on the list already. From an iOS perspective, it works with any iOS device from the 5S and above. So you can also run it on an old iPod Touch and on iPads. So some people will use their daily driver. They'll have an iPhone 12. They'll mount that up, or they'll get a second-hand device and use that as well, so that they've got like a permanent fixture. And you can get an iPhone 6 with a cracked screen for $100–150. It's going to be cheaper than a purpose-built webcam, and you can use that as a permanent mount. And an iPhone 6 will give you better quality than either of the webcams I've got up here. It won't quite be as good as this, but it'll be pretty good.
So how old can we go? How far back can we go?
We can go back to a 7-year-old iPhone 5S,
Wow.
Which will, the iPhone 5S, it's okay. It will certainly be a lot better than the C920. The BRIO 4K in good lighting might beat it. But like if you're on a 6 or a 7, you're going to be leagues ahead. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So the next kind of wave of questions are, walk us through, how are you mounting this to your screen? A couple of these, both from Luke and from the indie author. So can you talk about what you'd recommend? You probably have like a small case of stands that you've used at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a pile of stuff on my desk next to me. So I guess one thing to think about is whether you have a fixed setup with a monitor, like a desktop environment for your Mac, or if you're on a MacBook. If you're on a MacBook, the sort of thing that works quite well is a tripod. You can get something fairly basic, position it behind the screen. Here's a fairly simple Amazon job. This was about $25, this one. There are other sorts you can use. So I think this is a kind of a very simple Joby mount that you can use for an iPhone. It's got a Gliffy clip on top. So I mean, this kind of mounting setup is going to cost you between $20 to say $60, depending on the sort of thing you get. And then this can then sit a device behind your MacBook. It's helpful to have the elevation because, of course, you don't want the camera going up your nose. You want ideally the camera at eye level. If you're on a kind of a fixed setup, something that we find works very well, a gooseneck arm. So I've got this arm here. You've got one end that you mount a phone into, and then the other end kind of clips onto a desk, and the whole thing is flexible so that you can. In my case, I've got one of these kind of clipped onto the back of the desk, peeking over. These things are incredibly cheap. I think they're $19 on Amazon. You can't really go wrong. You can get them in black, you can get them in white, and you can get extra wide ones that will hold an iPad. And the cameras on the newer iPads are awesome as well. I mean, you can have it front ways or back ways. We can use either set of camera on them. Yeah, I've got a whole set of toys here, but those are probably the ones that are going to work best for you.
Great, that's great. Now, just a quick question. Eddie asks if you need a SIM card. So it's a great question. You have that old iPhone. You've been meaning to eBay it. You never did. What type of access does it need?
No, it's communicating over Lightning from that cable. So you don't even need Wi-Fi. It doesn't need data. Doesn't need SIM card. The device can be in offline mode. Where people use their daily driver phones, they might set up a shortcut to put the phone into do not disturb mode, because if you are using your daily driver phone, you probably don't want it to ring while it's set up as an iPhone. That will pause the feed, which is fine, but it's probably a bit unhelpful. So you can set up a shortcut that will automatically put it into DND. And then, if it is the old iPhone 6 in your drawer that you're using, I mean, you can take the SIM card out. You can just leave it in airplane mode or do not disturb or whatever. It doesn't need to know anything about your network. It could be a completely dumb phone with nothing else installed on it.
Awesome. What about a video delay? Is this introducing any latency? Your sync looks pretty good right now.
Yeah, so it doesn't introduce any delay. We do all of the processing on the iOS device. So where we're doing these image adjustments and composition tricks, we're doing them on iOS and encoding the video. So we're able to do encoding on an iOS device that webcams no longer do. So it's actually simpler for your Mac to consume the feed from Camo than it is from a newer iPhone where they don't do this proper encoding for you. And what you can do with Camo is you can configure it to say send you a 360p feed or a 720p or a 1080 or what have you, so that you don't have to send a stream that's higher than you're going to be forwarding on from your machine. So you're able to control it in that way.
Awesome. And how about compatibility to different devices? So we're using StreamYard right now, which is to do our broadcast, and that's just a browser-based plugin. So clearly it works within Chrome, but where else does it work? And Maddie's specifically asking about using it for Zoom meetings.
Yeah, so we've got native compatibility with Zoom. I was reaching out to Eric at Zoom in the start of the year to get that, and those guys really embraced us. That was awesome of them. So they added that back in our Zoom 4 point something or other. But yeah, we've had full Zoom support almost all year. So if you're on, in fact, you can't even run the versions of Zoom anymore that don't support Camo. We've got support with Teams with an integration that we installed. There's GoToMeeting, anything that runs within Chrome. So if you're using Google Meet, anything like that, that will work well. Camo doesn't work with everything just yet. So we don't support FaceTime on the Mac and we don't support Safari. But we've got most of the chat products that you'll be using day to day. And there is an integrations menu in Camo Studio. So some apps don't work out of the box with it, but you can go into integrations and you can install it.
You said Camo Studio. Can you differentiate?
Right. Yeah. So it's Camo that runs on your iOS device. You'll see that's in the App Store. It's just search for Camo, that will come up. And the Camo Studio is the bit that runs on your Mac or PC. And the two talk to each other.
Awesome. I would not be a good ambassador for Descript if I didn't mention that on my first day of running it, I tried to see if it works with Descript's screen recorder. So as many of you know, and some of you are always surprised to find out, whenever you install Descript, you basically get a free screen recorder that captures your webcam and your screen if you want it to as well. On Mac, it's in the menu bar at the top, little D icon, and on Windows, it's in the notifications area on the bottom. When you click on that, you can select Camo as the input source, and then use your whatever camera's connected there. So now all of my webcam sessions, including some product demo videos that I do, I'll just kind of pop my iPhone up on the stand, which is above my monitor at all times, plug it in, and just kind of go. When you're doing those screen recordings, so some other kind of best practices, So we talked, a bit about lighting. So, in those of you that are astute followers of this live stream series have seen my background changed, swapped different rooms. At one point, I was basically just facing a wall, which meant I had to provide all of my lighting, or the only light hitting my face was the laptop screen. So it was very bluish. So now I have a ring light. As you can expect, it's basically just those ring lights. The one I had was very clearly marketed towards people doing makeup videos. I think I spent $29, $39, $49 on Amazon for it. And for the basics of being able to do things like adjust the color temperature. And so if you look at my image, you can see I'm adjusting the color temperature from a little bluer to a little oranger to a little more neutral. And then I can adjust, let's just put it back here. And then I can adjust the brightness of it, take it down. And then the buttons are a little hard to find. There we go. And take it all the way up. I'm not sure why I would want to blow myself out like this, but you could. And in some situations, it's very versatile. Not only having it, in my case, I have it directly in back of my monitor, so that way it kind of gets my face, gets a little bit in my eye. But I've seen other people as well, again, using it for other lighting behind them. So that's kind of how I've been using lighting, and a good thing to do. Of course, standalone microphone. We are big advocates of having the highest quality audio possible. And so if you are going to go through all this work to, you're going to start investing, you're going to get some software, get some stands. Let me walk you through. Right now, this is what I sound like through my Blue Yeti X. It's probably not as close as I would like it to. Ideally, I'd be kind of closer here. You get more of the radio announcer voice. I have it a little further away because I just didn't want it in my frame right now. So that's my Blue Yeti X. Next, I'm going to switch to my C920, my Logitech C920. So now you hear what I sound like coming through the Logitech C920 webcam. Sometimes I'll start a meeting like this on Zoom, and my coworkers will quickly say, "Hey Jay, are you using the right mic?" And even more noticeable is when I go to my MacBook Pro built-in mic. So now this is me talking to my MacBook Pro mic. My laptop's been kind of spinning up a bit during this, so you get some of that background noise kind of leaking into there. And then the last thing I can do is I can actually access the camera, sorry, the microphone built into my Camo mic on my iPhone XR. This last one is the iPhone mic built into my iPhone XR. So my guess, I actually haven't heard what this sounds like. My guess is it's not going to sound as good as the Blue Yeti X in this situation because I have the Yeti. Go back to my Yeti X. My Yeti X is pretty close to where I'm standing. It's going to sound probably pretty good. But for those of you again that are getting started, use the best gear you have. And if it's a phone you have handy, part of what we wanted to do is kind of walk you through this and just show you where all this fits out. Of course, I'd be remiss. You need to get this as close to your mic or to your mouth as possible. So there's a difference between doing a webcast like this. But if I was going to do a product demo video, I'd probably take my boom arm, pull it over, really just get it 6 inches at the most away from you. And if you're going to want to go further without having it in the scene, you're going to want a shotgun mic, something that can kind of zoom in on you from afar. The last piece would be sound dampening. We moved into this place like 6 weeks ago, so still not happy with the amount of reverberance that's just naturally in the room. There's a lot of hard surfaces, not a lot of carpet. So what we would actually want to do is start putting in some curtains, some carpet, some blankets, some pillows. You want as much of that stuff as possible. A lot of you have probably seen this photo of Ira Glass from This American Life where he's recording at home in his closet. And for musical recording, that would be acoustically dead and pretty boring. But for voiceover work, you're actually going to get a pretty good result from a closet or putting some soft surfaces all around you. Okay, so before we go into kind of our next phase, while Aiden was doing some demos, I was actually scrambling to see if we could actually contact the Aiden people on your team, see if we could get a discount code because I was being asked for that. And so we actually do have a discount code that Chris will be putting on screen in a second. But maybe Judy asks, what's with the pro version of Camo versus free?
Good question. So the idea is hopefully the free version should give you just about everything you need. It will let you stream at 720p. So I'm at 1080 at the moment. If I've just dropped down, so this is now a 720p feed that I'm sending. I would be surprised if Stream Deck is putting out more than 720p. So, well, the camera's focused on me now. Let me bump it up to 1080. I think we'll probably see a difference. Yeah, there is a bit of a difference.
Yeah, and this stream is a 1080p stream.
Yep. I mean, if you're running a Zoom call, if you're running something like that, I'm back to 720p now, you're not going to see a huge amount of difference. But basically, the free version will give you this. You don't get the different adjustments, but you can switch between the lenses, the front and back lenses on your phone. And there is a Camo watermark. So you see the little Camo logo down there. If you have the free version, you can turn that off, or you can even, as I showed earlier, kind of replace it with a custom watermark that you've pre-created. So basically, the free version, 720p, it's got the logo on. You know, the camera adjustments are great to have, but as I said before, 9 times out of 10, the iPhone is going to do a cracking job, and you're probably not going to need to override what it's doing. But the option is there if you upgrade.
Awesome, awesome. So thank you, Chris, for putting together a little scrolling news banner for us. So really wasn't the intent to promote Camo that much, but Descript 25 is something you can use to get a nice discount as you're giving this a try. So there are a number of questions about lighting and quality. Maybe we can kind of go into one of our next segment of kind of pre-recorded things that you've brought in for us to look at, Aidan, and kind of diagnose what's going right and what's going wrong.
Sure. So we've got a couple of pictures of people that you may recognize broadcasting themselves, looking at how they come across. I think maybe Mark Zuckerberg's a pretty good example. We can start with his, you know, this impression that he's got here. This is really as good as it gets. I would say he's probably using an RED camera. He may have a 50 grand camera installed at home. And he's having a very good experience with that. You know, there's no exposure or blowout problems in that shot. There's a beautiful shallow depth of field behind him. But of course, he doesn't always do that. So we've got another shot of him where he was testifying in the Senate hearings. And you know, he's using a classic webcam here. You know, Tim Cook used an iOS device and looked amazing. Mark Zuckerberg didn't. You know, he's got a pretty weak color balance there. Obviously, it's quite a compressed feed, but it didn't come across as well. We can look at a couple of other people. So we've got David Levi with a live TV appearance. He is almost certainly using a built-in webcam here for doing this. I wish people wouldn't do it when they're live on TV because they can look better. But kind of the hallmark of this really is the flatness of the color. It's a very kind of gray brown scene. What you often see with the built-ins is that there's a lot of black, so you can see his hair and his glasses and the door and his shirt. Like it's all kind of down and dark and black. So there's a bit of white, but no real bright whites. And like his face has been made entirely the same color. His teeth, his eyes. It's just kind of, there's very weak color definition. Slightly better than that, perhaps, is Jennifer Aniston, again on TV. I would imagine this is a C920 because it's kind of fiddled about with her face. There's an exposure problem. You know, her skin color is kind of moving up into this very strange artificial color where the light is touching her face and it's sort of washed out her eyes a bit. She's struggling there. And then, you know, we could look at Joe Biden. Joe Biden, he's got somebody pointing a DSLR at him. He's got a very nice depth of field behind him there. You know, Zuckerberg looked better, but Zuckerberg's image wasn't from a compressed feed, whereas Biden's is. But he's, you know, he's coming across quite well here. But that's kind of, you know, I think if you are going to end up in a live broadcast, if you are going to be out this way, you really don't want to use a conventional webcam. You know, jumping up to an iPhone or something like that you're just going to come across better even if it's heavily compressed. And again, it's not about the resolution, it's about the image that's getting compressed before it's sent to people.
That's a kind of a good takeaway. And where when people always ask gear questions, and again, I probably spent more time researching how to compose a good looking shot for a video I was doing than I spent writing the script. So the real advice is focus on the content. Just like make sure you have compelling content first and foremost, and then get the gear to do it. But then if you are going to do it, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. So we're hopefully kind of walking you through a variety of solutions. And also we have friends at Logitech too. So the C920 is a very popular solution because it is very good at a good price point, and you can get them everywhere. So we might have shown you something today that actually is making you more excited about a tool that you already have in your closet or something you were thinking about purchasing. We really just kind of wanted to give you a whole bunch of options here. Aiden, are you okay with some advice times? Let's
sure.
All right, let's go with Sammy. I'm a new entrepreneur. I need to shoot a marketing video that would be streamed on social media. What do you recommend?
Well, as Jay said, I think the content's the most important thing. If that's going to be a video where it's featuring people in an indoor scene, I mean, I would, if you can, use an iPhone. I mean, if it's a pre-recorded video, you're not streaming it live. You wouldn't even need to use Camo. You can just record that directly on your phone straight away. There's a lot can work there. I mean, if you're going to put yourself out there, as Jay said, natural lighting or a ring light will help you. If you've got a big old fat light and you're wearing glasses, you'll get reflection in a way that you won't quite so much with a ring light. You can use a 2-point lighting system, which can help with that. There's a whole lot of stuff on Amazon that I like looking at. There are these, I think they're called Nature Balm oil wipes. It's this little packet of wipes you can get out. If your forehead is shiny, like mine often is, you can just kind of wipe your face, take that shine off before the camera. Because if you've got the lighting system, you don't necessarily want to be glowing too much back into the video. If you're recording it with something like Zoom, there are a couple of things to think about. I don't believe Zoom's HD mode is enabled by default. There's a button you can go in and tick. You want to pay attention to whether touch up my feed is on or off, because that will subtly alter things. And Zoom will also, by default, it will mirror what it shows you, which might be misleading. So you might want to turn that off so that you can see yourself as other people will see yourself. And then I would think about your background and what's behind you. It's not like we all had a lot of notice that we would predominantly be working from home. So not everyone's kind of got the environment that they want to have. I wish I had, I wish I knew this was going to happen, because I would have done some stuff to change my scene. But again, having the right sort of background behind you is quite helpful, and cropping yourself relative to the image is also quite helpful. And if you're showing something off, thinking about where that is relative to you and how you bring that in, whether that's something you physically interact with, whether that's something that's superimposed over you as you speak.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love the reminder that you can also just shoot natively on your phone, especially with one of the stands that you held up earlier. If I were to do, if I want to say like, I want that over there to be my background, not having to be tethered to your laptop or your monitor or anything like that. Just set it up, compose the shot, record it. Of course, then bring it into Descript, which you can then use to edit.
And there are some great tools for doing that. There's a gimbal made by a company called Xeon. I forget the ZHIYUN. I think it's about $100. We've got a couple of them. It will stabilize your iPhone beautifully while you're recording with it. It can really make quite a difference.
Yeah, definitely. A quick question about where your camera, how do you have it lined up? You showed us a little example earlier. You have multiple cameras, but if you're going to pick one setup for your setup, what would you do?
Yeah, so I am at the moment in front of a kind of a fixed computer setup. So generally when I'm talking to you, you're not getting my eye contact because I've got a couple of cameras set up, right? I've got a kind of rearranged setup, but you can see here, essentially that's what I'm doing. I've got my iPhone mounted with a gooseneck arm just over the top of this computer. I would ordinarily have the lens a little bit lower down. But yeah, I'd kind of have it behind, poking up behind the screen at me. If you have a laptop, again, depending on how your desk and how your seat is set up, you may have the camera behind the laptop, or you may have it off to one side. And you know, if you're reading from notes, there's a bit of thinking to do about kind of teleprompting and where the notes are and how you're doing that. You know, you may have an iPad suspended to one side of a lens, or you may have a more sophisticated solution. But yeah, those are things to think about.
Awesome. Awesome. For those inspired by your very simple way of showing what we're doing. So here you get, well, you can see a nice window. So there's the blue Yeti X hanging down. This is more difficult than it seems. There we go. And then that's my C920. And then there's my phone, all just kind of positioned over that. Get a nice little tour of the weather outside, which is a little overcast today, which makes for wonderfully diffuse lighting. So very happy with that. Let's see. Oh, great question, Griff. You want to take this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so if you wear glasses, as I sometimes do, it's kind of unhelpful if you're looking at a camera and you've got the double reflections. The ring light is helpful just because it's not one big lump of light. It can cast light in a slightly more diffuse way, so that your glasses won't quite look the same. It can also look quite nice if you have a big enough ring light and it's set up correctly, that you get that lovely little light ring in your eyes, or indeed on your glasses. I mean, ideally you want a 2-point or a multi-point lighting system so that you can have less light from more sources. It might be 2 stronger ones either side of your face, maybe with something a little bit above you in front of you, or indeed you can use a proper diffuser, which is like one of those things that looks like a very big umbrella, where there's a very bright light shining away from you into the umbrella, and then the light is kind of bouncing back on you, and that can be used to warm your image up and just to kind of lighten you in a slightly more natural way. Those things, again, they're quite cheap on eBay. It's amazing what you get. Sorry, not eBay, Amazon. It's amazing what you can get for 30 or 40 bucks, but they are big. So if you're recording in a home office, you're probably better off with ring lights or key lights or that sort of thing. But if you've got a bit more space, a big old diffuser will really help.
If I could have written a question as if I were Luke Williamson, I would have written this question. If I'm needing to interview somebody remotely who isn't computer literate, but I need to record their audio, what would you recommend? So maybe you and I are collaborating. You're looking to interview me. What are some options you think might survive?
Yeah. So there are a number of products that do just this. And I think if one was doing it at scale, I might use something like that. If I was using a bunch of, you know, if I wasn't doing it too much, I might think about using Zoom because it's pretty straightforward, and you can do this. I mean, Jay, what's your take on this one?
So really early pandemic, there were a ton of like remote interviewing things that were all being done. The solution was to basically, and like studios were doing this, mail people a high-end mobile device. So it would be the latest iPhone, or even the iPhone or iPad Pro. Mail people the device and like a little ring light. Tell them how to set it up. Have them just hit record on it and literally mail it back or upload the files,
right.
You know, sync it to Dropbox or Google Drive afterwards, and then conduct the interview on Zoom, Google Meet, whatever. So that's actually the like reference copy and the discussion, but the stuff that was going on air, you know, for late night TV, for a lot of interviews, were really just coming off of an iPad Pro. And so the brute force option, and I've sent people audio gear. I've actually never sent them video gear. But if you really want to control the quality, and it is somebody that might be not as technologically savvy, mail them gear. And then just, here's a little tripod, here's a device, and then, either have it sync to Dropbox or just send it back to me when you're done.
I suppose a lot depends on the quality needs, doesn't it? I mean, we're working with, so Camo is powering a couple of dedicated hardware solutions for very high quality remote videos of exactly the sort you described, Jay, where they get sent a briefcase, it's got everything built in, they plug it in, turn it on. And certainly if anyone reaches out to me, I'm very happy to connect them with those companies. But again, if you're recruiting roles that maybe aren't as senior or there are more of them, I guess there are a range of different options depending on the outcome you're looking for.
Awesome. As we're kind of coming to the end of our what looks to be our most well-attended live broadcast so far. So a lot of people have this problem, it seems. Quick question about a Camo specific question. Does it work with the new M1?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm on my iMac here, but yeah, I mean, we've got all of the M1 devices. It's built specifically for Apple Silicon. It will run entirely natively on those things, and you should have a lovely experience with it.
Fantastic. You say absolutely as if everything works with the M1 Max, but it's great to hear that it's already working.
Yep.
Awesome. Wonderful. So, and one more time, what are you using for your feed?
So this is an 11 Pro Max, which is pretty good. I mean, yeah, I've got the 12 Pro Max here, and it's a bit nicer, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. This is a dedicated device. They're about half price on eBay if you get one with a cracked screen. So you can get them around about the price of, well, a little bit more than a 4K BRIO, but if you get a recent battered iPhone, it makes a pretty affordable, extremely high quality fixed webcam.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, everyone, I hope you all enjoyed this session and got as much from it as I did. Hopefully, I don't want to dissuade you from spending several hours browsing DSLR reviews and lighting reviews on YouTube. You're going to do that anyway. It's a rat hole, and that's why the internet exists. So, but if you are looking for a solution, I wanted to share with you one of my favorites. It's Camo. It's an app available for Mac and Windows, and also allows you to use your iPhone and soon to be Android phone as a webcam or as a high quality recording device into video conferencing solutions or even your Descript screen recordings. Aidan, thanks so much for joining me today.
Jay, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. So for those of you that are wondering why I didn't bring up the Descript screen, we will resume that next week. In the meantime, a couple of quick announcements. The Descript user community is active and thriving on Discord. So there's a link at the bottom of the screen, discord.descript.com. Encourage everybody to join us there, continue the discussion. Not a lot of discussion on the forum about video, so there needs to be more because you can do all of your video editing in Descript. And the last one would be, there was somebody who was asking about support-related questions. Chris, if you want to pop up the help center, I have a lot of questions when I use the app, and what I do is I go to help.descript.com. This is what the page looks like when you go to help.descript.com. We're putting a ton of product demos, videos, and tutorials into here. Type in your question. If you do need further help, such as our colleague Lycan, who has a question for us, click on submit a request at the top right, and then send us a support request. We have an awesome team who we will be featuring on this live stream in a few weeks, handling your most common questions and answers, and they'll get back to you shortly. And of course, if you're using Camo, make sure to say hi to Aidan on his support channel. Aidan, thank you again for joining us. Everyone, thank you for a wonderful time. And yes, we'll have a good rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.